Well, the snowfall has shut down large portions of the federal government. That got me to thinking, why do we have government? Let's have Benjamin Franklin give us a civics lesson today.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
Why do we have government? Have you ever stopped to think about it? What's the purpose of government? Is one type of government more legitimate than another? Are all governments created equal? The reason I'm asking this is because as the Northeast gets pounded with these incredible snowstorms, a foot of snow fell in Washington, D.C., and the press reported that the federal government shut down. And I just had a sigh of relief. A wave of happiness went over me, and I thought, well, they can't do so much harm to us if they're closed. And obviously, the wheels that are in motion from this Leviathan are so huge that they just keep on grinding away, whether or not the Capitol and a lot of the bureaucracies are closed for a couple days. So it was wishful thinking on my part. But it set me to thinking. Maybe I should do a small segment on this program to discuss with you why we have government. Now, when you study government and you study history, you have to have a connection between philosophy and policy. In other words, a philosophical view of man, the nature of man, and the purpose of government results in policy or laws. So if you believe that philosophy, if you believe that the primary purpose of government is the redistribution of wealth, well, then you would have policies that take money from some people and give it to others. So in this segment, we're going to honor Benjamin Franklin as we look at the purpose of government as our forefathers declared it to be. In the Declaration of Independence, it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." That means that you don't even have to discuss it. Everyone agrees on this. Boy, how far we've fallen. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men." So the founders believed, this is self-evident, we don't even need to discuss it, that there is a God, He created us, and He endowed us with certain rights that cannot be taken away from us. They're inalienable. All right? It means you can't be separated from them. And that among these are the right to life, the right to liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as we've discussed before, the triplet was usually life, liberty, and property. They decided to put in the pursuit of happiness. Benjamin Franklin said this: "The Constitution only gives people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself." He didn't say that the right for us to pursue happiness was the ability of the government to provide for us from cradle to grave. A statist is somebody who believes that the state is the healer, the provider, the parent. In other words, you had people who came to America hundreds of years ago for freedom. But now you have people in America clamoring not for freedom, but for free stuff. People didn't risk their lives crossing the ocean so that they could have health care. They didn't risk their lives crossing the Allegheny Mountains so that they could have free education. They didn't risk their lives crossing the Mississippi and the howling plains of the Midwest so that they could have the government underwrite their mortgage or pay for a new wagon. They didn't risk their lives crossing the Rocky Mountains so that they could have health care and food stamps and Head Start for their children. They did it so that they could have life, liberty, and property. And as Benjamin Franklin said, gives you the right to pursue happiness in our form of government, but you have to catch it yourself. Now, today we have people who want the government to provide for their needs. Here's what Benjamin Franklin said. When the people find that they can vote themselves money, that will herald the end of the republic. And friend, that's exactly what we see happening today. People are voting for other people who promise them the most stuff. In other words, we've figured out that we can vote ourselves money. And if Benjamin Franklin were alive today, he would say, I bet with a cracked voice and tears in his eyes, that the republic that he helped found is dead. When we come back, we're going to look at his thoughts on democracy. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life. How would you like to be able to reach hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of potential customers with your product or your company or your web-based business? Well, you can do that right here on this show. Every single day, we get phone calls or letters or orders online from states all over the country where people are watching this television show. Right now, we are seen in 45 cities at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time every night, and then a rerun again at 12:30 midnight. You can reach them using this show at advertising rates that are so inexpensive, it would blow your mind. So, if you're interested, contact us at the phone number that you see on the screen or the email address, and we can talk about how you can grow your business and help support this show. Benjamin Franklin said, democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. There are a lot of people, perhaps you, who believe that democracy itself as a form of government is the end all. In other words, hey, we voted fair and square and we won the vote. The founders of this republic actually feared true democracy. They believed that it was a type of mob rule. We saw democracy go amok in the French Revolution with brutal killings, unthinkable crimes committed against certain individuals, the seizure of private property, the seizure of churches, because after all, that's what the mob wanted. The founders of this republic feared true democracy, and what they believed in was representative government under God's law. And we do have the right in the democratic process to elect our officials. That's a good thing. That comes from the scriptures. In the law of Moses, God told Moses, tell the people, select from among yourselves elders who would rule in the gates and who would execute judgment and justice and who would rule as princes. But all of those princes were required to rule under the laws of God. That's what the founders of this republic believed. Again, I quote Benjamin Franklin. Freedom is not a gift bestowed upon us by other men, but a right that belongs to us by the laws of God and nature. He also said, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become more corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. He also said, this will be the best security for maintaining our liberties. A nation of well-informed men who have been taught to know and prize the rights which God has given them cannot be enslaved. It is in the religion of ignorance that tyranny begins. And then finally, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Please note the direct connection that Benjamin Franklin makes again and again, just like in our Declaration of Independence, that God, the God, is central to the equation of liberty and the purpose of government. So those people who want to drive God out of the public square and have a state, a government that is free to do what it wants, they are playing into the hand of tyranny, into the hand of two wolves and a lamb, and the wolves voting on what to have for lunch. If I believe that we can make up the rules as we go, and that we can govern by democracy, and that governments exist to take care of us, then we do not act, as Benjamin Franklin said, as the well-informed men who prize, who cherish what God has given us. At that point, we act like Marxists, people who believe that government exists to redistribute the wealth. At that point, we act like positivists, people who believe that we can create law out of thin air, and that any law or any policy is just as valid as the next, as long as we have voted for it. We'll follow something through to the end. If two wolves vote to have the lamb for lunch, is that just? Is it right? Is that the purpose of government? What if you're the lamb? What if you're the wolf? In other words, if we are propelled by our own jealousies or greed or even laziness, I mean, after all, the Bible says if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. Karl Marx says, well, he might be able to eat as long as he can compel other people to feed him. I mean, I ask you, what is the purpose of government? The founders believed it was to secure the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that's why we have government. And then they went on to say that when a government becomes destructive to those ends, destructive to life, destructive to liberty, destructive to the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. In other words, a heavily armed lamb who contests the vote. Do you want to be the wolf or the lamb in that parable? Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. We recently covered the sad and heroic story of Aaron and Melissa Klein, who defied the law in Oregon and said, we will not serve and sell wedding cake to people of the same gender who are having a wedding. We don't believe in it. We're not going to participate in it. We're going to honor God and honor our faith. Now, they are facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. I've been in communication with them. I promise you that I will keep you up to speed on what happens to them as the story unfolds. In this particular case, they are the lamb. And the wolves have decided they're going to eat them for lunch. And they voted. And the wolves have the government on their side. And so, sadly, like lambs being led to perhaps the financial slaughter, this couple is now facing the full hand and the iron fist of the Oregon government because they remained true to their convictions and their conscience as they understand it found in the Christian Bible. Right? We need to honor them for their courage. Now, in the time that this republic was founded, we see men like Benjamin Franklin who are quoting from the scriptures. And by the way, let me go on a quick rabbit trail. One of the reasons we do this program is to be the philosophical, the theological arms dealer for the right-hand side of your brain, to help you to think properly so that you can act properly and decisively and courageously. And if you go to our website, voiceofresistance.com, almost everything that we have there is free. Our country is in deep trouble, and we're not doing this to make money. We're doing this to recruit and to train and to help mobilize the next generation of leaders cut from the cloth of the founders of this republic, without the slavery part, cut from the cloth of the great men of history who fought for justice. So if you want to be a man or a woman who stands for the truth and helps bring this nation back to righteousness and justice, go to our website, take advantage of the stuff that we have there. Anyway, Benjamin Franklin was not a Christian. He was a deist. He believed in God, but he did not believe in the Christian Bible. In fact, George Whitefield, the great evangelist of that time, preached over and over to Franklin. Franklin's printing shop actually printed George Whitefield's tracts. And when Whitefield died, Benjamin Franklin spoke very highly of him, but said he tried to bring me to the Christian faith, and he died without having accomplished his goal. But nevertheless, Benjamin Franklin was so informed, his conscience, his political philosophy was so informed by the Judeo-Christian religion that he understood the nature of man, the nature of law, and the purpose of government. And he embraced it, and he heralded it. In fact, did you know that the most frequently quoted book in revolutionary literature was the book of Deuteronomy? The founders of this republic were motivated by the Judeo-Christian religion, by the laws of God, in their effort to secure liberty and to build a government that protected life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And central to that equation were ministers of the gospel. There were great men of God whose pulpits thundered with politics. Now, they didn't believe that they were political preachers. They believed, I believe with them, that they were simply preaching the whole counsel of God. They were preaching the laws of God as those laws applied to the body politic and to civil policy. Compare those great men of God to the pulpits of today. When we come back, I'm going to revisit somebody who's gone to the dark side. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. Rob Bell. That name is known to some of you. Time magazine said that he was one of the most 100 influential people in 2011. He is, in some circles, an evangelical rock star, superstar, writing books, giving seminars. He was a pastor of a very successful church for many years. He does some short films that are quite cinematographically compelling. He had this to say about a week ago in an interview.
Yes, I am for marriage. I am for fidelity. I am for love, whether it's a man and a woman, a woman, a woman, a man and a man.
Okay.
And I think the ship has sailed, and I think that the church needs to just, this is the world that we are living in, and we need to affirm people wherever they are.
Great. Good.
This is moral relativism. This is not the church standing for what it believes. This is saying, well, the train left the station. We've got to accept the fact that we've lost. Let's affirm people. Let's affirm people where they are. We'll take out same-gender marriage and put in any other tragic behavior, any other sinful behavior. Would you make the same statement regarding fill in the blank? This is not the stuff that the apostles were made of. But this type of relativism is poisoning young people. And this man, Rob Bell, has, I'm sorry to bring you this news. I'm sure that he's done good. I can tell you right now that one of the members of my staff used his material in youth group for years. And it came as a devastating blow to him to hear Rob Bell leave Christian orthodoxy. This isn't going away, and our young people are being affected by it. In the city of Shamashish, Washington, Eastside High School had to fire their vice principal. His name is Mark Zamuda. He was fired because he announced his engagement to another man. So the Catholic high school said, in your contract it says that you will uphold the moral teachings of the Catholic Church with your lifestyle. We can't have you teaching our kids. And they fired him. And sadly, the students of the high school are having protests to bring him back. In other words, here are these kids going to a Catholic high school and their consciences are not being formed properly, or they're not being discipled. They're not being taught the scriptures and their own Catholic faith properly. In another school in Ohio, a young man who was in charge of the band, the choir, for 5 years, announced that he and his partner of 5 years were going to be wed, 2 men. And again, the Catholic Church there said, you can't teach here at this school. I mean, at least the Catholic bishops in these areas are holding true to the Catholic faith. But listen to his resignation letter that the school allowed to be distributed to the students. Here's what he said. It is with heavy heart and great remorse that I find myself stepping down from my position as director and coordinator of music at Sandusky Central Catholic School. I am, however, proud to announce that over Christmas break, I accepted a proposal of engagement to my partner of 5 years. As a proud and gay Catholic, I understand the Church's teaching on marriage and agree that my engagement is a public statement of my position for marriage equality, which the Catholic Church does not yet support. I am hopeful to see change in the future, but until then, I'm praying for strength and understanding and encourage my students to do the same. In other words, here he is, a teacher, young man, who is poisoning these young hearts. Poisoning them. I know that I'm in defiance of the Church's teachings so far, but I'm praying for strength and courage, and I encourage all the other students to do the same. The reason that we cannot have these people teaching our students is because, by definition, they are trying to evangelize them and bring them into this world.